Hey John. So I'm recording you this video to show you how to fix the way this eye is rendering. And so just a quick open render view here. If we hit play on this, we'll see what the issue is. So the reason this is happening, and this stuff like this happens a lot with eyes. The reason this is happening is this is a little bit of a different reason, but there are actually two eye meshes. Right? So for a lot of rigs, there'll be sort of this internal eye piece where your iris and everything is. And then there'll be another sphere on top of that just to give it some gloss. So in this case, though, and in those cases, what would end up happening is that the area that is supposed to be gloss is not rendering with the correct transparency, so it's just rendering as black or a solid color. Right? Now, in this case, though, it's a similar issue. So we have our character's eye mesh, right? And this is for both eyes, right? But because the eye is an irregular shape, the iris on the outside here is a separate mesh that is actually just a duplicate of that same mesh. So if I click this eye iris, we got two of them, right? And the reason for that is because with this control here, if we rotate it, it will allow us to kind of change the UV space on this outside of the eye. So that means this piece right here, if you select it and go look at its UVs, it is just all of the white area. And then this piece here, the iris, is just the iris area, right? So what's happening is that and so everywhere that is not the iris on this iris mesh, it's supposed to render as transparent. However, Maya or Arnold is not recognizing that transparency. So I tinkered around with a couple of different ideas on how to fix this, but let me show you what I finally came up with. So if we select our material here, right, I'm going to go ahead and select this iris. Actually, no, I'm going to select the left eye iris material. And I'm going to go ahead and graph that in with both the inputs and the outputs. Now, here's the weird part about this to me. He's calling this the left iris, even though it's the character's right eye. So what we have here is, since we've graphed this out, I'll sort of show you. We got this place 2D texture node that has some scripting going on in here that is allowing us to change the UV space, right? And then the material that has an alpha on it and some color to target. And then we have our material where the color is going into the color, the transparency is going to, or I think the alpha is going into the transparency, and then this is mapping into a Lambert shader. So to me, the easiest way to do this is just to switch all of this to Arnold, because I know an Arnold material will work. And what I did from there is I just created a quick AI standard surface. Right? And there's a couple of ways we can do this, but what I did is if you right-click on this, which is our original eye material, and say select objects with material, you will see that it's selecting the polygons for this eye. And that's where this gets really hard to fix, is you can't manually select those polygons for the eye because he has it frozen. Right? So what I can do now is I can now just, there's two ways I could do this. I could reapply this AI standard surface, or let's just try that. If I select this, right click on this AI standard surface, assign material to viewport selection. It doesn't look like that worked actually. Let's see, 6. Yeah. So instead of doing that, the way he has this worked out in the node editor just makes it more complicated. So instead of doing that, what we're going to do instead is map our AI standard surface here into the surface shader. Right, so we'll just do that. Right. And then I can delete this one. And so we now need these textures, and if you go look at it now, the material is the AI standard surface, and it will render as an AI standard surface, right? So now we just need to map in our color into our AI standard surface. So I can do that from out color to base color. And then you'll see here, if I mouse over this, or I think I can expand it so we can see it. We got a couple of things here. We got out transparency, but if I go back to this, we also have out alpha. And so the AI standard surface doesn't really understand transparency as much. Let's go ahead and disconnect some of this stuff from here. But it does understand alpha. So what I can do is uncheck this. And there's a couple of ways I could do this, but the one that seemed to work best for me is to use the alpha to go into each of the opacity channels. So you'll see if I start rendering this now, we're still getting the same thing you had because there's no transparency. And I'll take this out alpha into each of these opacities, and it will start to wipe out the RGB colors in that area. All right. So sort of the unfortunate part of this is there are two of them. So if we tumble over to the other side, what I would consider the left eye, but what he is calling the right eye, it's got the same thing going on, so you'll have to do it with that as well. But hopefully this should fix it, and most importantly is if you have any animation on the eye, it seems to be respecting that. So hopefully this helps. Let me know if you have any more questions, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.